Hi, my friends. Today I want to present you a new story. Enjoy watching it.
I'll never forget the day my world began to shrink. It was a gray afternoon, the kind where the sky hangs heavy with clouds that never quite decide whether to rain or not. I sat in Dr. Matthews' office, the smell of antiseptic thick in the air. My mother sat beside me, her hand gripping mine, though I could tell she was trying not to squeeze too hard. She always did that, held on too tight when she was scared. I could feel her pulse racing through her fingers, faster than mine, which was ironic, considering the reason we were there. Dr. Matthews leaned forward, his face serious but not unkind. He was a tall man, with graying hair that matched the somberness of the room. "Your heart condition has progressed faster than we anticipated," he said, his voice calm and clinical, though I could hear the heaviness behind the words. He glanced down at the papers in front of him, avoiding my gaze. My throat tightened. "What does that mean?" I asked, though deep down I already knew. "It means," Dr. Matthews paused, "your heart is failing. Without a transplant, the likelihood of survival is slim." I felt the world tilt beneath me. My mother gasped softly, her hand gripping mine tighter. I didn't react right away. I just stared at him, trying to absorb the words. Failing. Transplant. Slim chances. It all felt surreal, like he was talking about someone else. Not me. "How long?" I managed to ask, my voice barely above a whisper. He hesitated before answering, his eyes finally meeting mine. "Months, maybe less. It's hard to say." My mother's hand slipped from mine, and she buried her face in her hands. I could hear her muffled sobs beside me, but I couldn't move to comfort her. My body felt frozen, like time had stopped, and I was stuck in this moment of terror and disbelief. "Is there anything we can do?" my mother asked, her voice trembling as she tried to regain composure. She looked up at Dr. Matthews, her eyes pleading for some miracle, some sliver of hope. He nodded, but it was a slow, measured nod, the kind that didn't promise much. "We can add you to the transplant list immediately. You'll need to be on it as soon as possible. In the meantime, we'll do everything we can to manage the symptoms and keep you stable." I barely heard him. My mind was somewhere else, racing through 1,000 different thoughts. Months. How do you live knowing you have months left? How do you say goodbye to everything, to everyone, when your heart is literally ticking down the seconds? I glanced at my mother, her face still pale, streaked with tears. She wiped her eyes, trying to compose herself for my sake. "We'll fight this," she said, her voice steadying. "You're going to get that heart, and we're going to get through this." I wanted to believe her. I wanted to grab onto that hope she was so desperately offering, but all I could feel was the weight pressing on my chest, the suffocating realization that I was running out of time. Dr. Matthews stood and walked over to us. "I know this is overwhelming, but you're in good hands. I'll make sure you're on that list immediately," he reassured us, his hand briefly resting on my shoulder. His touch was warm, but it didn't ease the cold fear that had settled deep inside me. The room felt too small, the air too thick. I stood up abruptly, needing to escape, needing to breathe. "I just need a moment," I muttered, not waiting for a response as I hurried out into the hallway. The hospital corridor stretched out before me, sterile and endless. I leaned against the wall, pressing my palms against the cool surface, trying to ground myself. Everything felt unreal. My heart, my own heart, was betraying me, and there was nothing I could do about it. I stayed like that for a long time, eyes closed, focusing on the faint, irregular beat in my chest. The beat that wasn't strong enough to keep me alive. I'd been drifting through the days in a fog since my diagnosis, my world now revolving around doctor's appointments, medications, and waiting. Always waiting. Every time the phone rang, my heart would skip a beat, wondering if this was the call, the one that would tell me they'd found a heart. But weeks passed, and the silence grew heavier, the hope dimming just a little bit more with each passing day. It was late one evening, just as the sky outside my hospital window began to darken, that my life changed forever. I was dozing off, my mother sitting in the chair beside me, her head leaning against the wall as she pretended to read a magazine. The room was quiet, save for the soft beeping of the machines that monitored my weakening heart. Suddenly, the door swung open. Dr. Matthews stepped in, his face illuminated by something other than the sterile hospital lights. There was an energy about him, a sense of urgency that cut through the usual calmness he carried. "Claire," he said, his voice firm but with an undercurrent of excitement. "We've found a donor." For a moment, the words didn't register. They hung in the air, surreal, like a dream I couldn't quite grasp. My mother sat up straight, her eyes wide. "What?" she whispered, her voice trembling. "A heart has become available," Dr. Matthews repeated, this time looking directly at me. "It's a match. We need to prepare for surgery immediately." My own heart, the one barely hanging on, lurched in my chest. My pulse quickened, and I could feel the blood rushing in my ears. I wasn't ready. I was waiting for this moment, praying for it, but now that it was here, the reality hit me like a tidal wave. Surgery. A new heart. Someone else's heart. My breath caught in my throat and panic started to creep in. What if something goes wrong? I blurted out, my voice cracking. My mind raced with images of hospital beds, operating tables, and the terrifying possibility that I might not wake up. What if? Dr. Matthews interrupted, stepping closer to my bed. "Claire," he said softly, his eyes steady and reassuring, "I won't lie to you. It's a serious procedure and there are risks. But we've been monitoring you closely, and we're ready. You have a good chance. The timing is perfect." I could feel my mother's hand gripping mine again, her warmth grounding me as I stared up at Dr. Matthews. "A chance," I whispered, more to myself than to him. "A second chance." "When?" my mother asked, her voice firm but laced with emotion. "Now," Dr. Matthews replied. "The team is already prepping. We need to move quickly." There was no time to think, no time to let fear settle in. Nurses flooded into the room, their faces a blur as they moved with practiced efficiency, attaching IVs, checking vitals, and giving quiet instructions. Everything felt surreal, like I was watching it all from outside my body. My mother's face hovered above me, her eyes glistening with tears. She was trying so hard to hold back. "You're going to be okay," she whispered, brushing a strand of hair from my forehead. "You're strong, Claire. You'll make it." I wanted to believe her, but all I could feel was the rapid thumping of my failing heart, counting down the minutes. Dr. Matthews stayed by my side until the gurney began to move, his presence a quiet reassurance amidst the chaos. As they wheeled me down the hallway, the lights above flickering by like stars in a night sky, I closed my eyes and tried to focus on that one word: hope. The operating room was cold, its sterile air filling my lungs as they wheeled me in. Everything seemed to move in slow motion, people in scrubs talking in hushed tones, machines beeping steadily, and the overhead lights casting a harsh glow on the room. I tried to take it all in, but my mind was spinning. Was this really happening? My heart, weak and failing, was about to be replaced by someone else's. Dr. Matthews appeared beside me, dressed in his surgical gown and mask. His eyes, the only part of his face I could see, were calm and focused. "We're ready, Claire," he said gently, his voice slightly muffled by the mask. "You're in good hands." I nodded, unable to speak as a nurse adjusted the mask over my face, the smell of antiseptic mixing with the cool oxygen. My mother's face flashed in my mind, her tearful goodbye as I was wheeled away. "Stay strong," she had whispered. I clung to those words now, trying to hold on to that sliver of courage. The anesthesiologist leaned over me, his voice soft but clear. "I'm going to count backward from 10. You'll start feeling sleepy, and soon you'll drift off." I closed my eyes, listening to him begin the countdown. 10, 9, 8. The sound of the heart monitor pulsed in the background, each beat slower than the last. And then, darkness. When I opened my eyes, it was like waking from the deepest sleep of my life. The world around me was blurry, and for a moment, I couldn't remember where I was. The soft beeping of machines grounded me, pulling me back into reality. Slowly, the room came into focus. I was no longer in the cold operating room, but in a recovery ward, the lights dim and the air warmer. I tried to speak, but my throat was dry, and a dull ache spread across my chest. I shifted slightly, wincing at the tightness. Then it hit me, the transplant. I had made it. I was alive. A nurse appeared by my side, her kind eyes peeking out from above her mask. "Welcome back, Claire," she said softly, adjusting the IV in my arm. "You're doing great." "Did it?" I croaked, my voice barely a whisper. "Did it work?" She nodded, her smile visible even through her mask. The surgery was successful. Dr. Matthews will be in to see you soon, but for now, just rest. I let her words sink in. Successful. I was still here. The heart inside my chest wasn't mine, but it was beating. It was strong, steady, something I hadn't felt in so long. Relief washed over me, but it was quickly followed by an overwhelming sense of gratitude, tinged with sadness. Someone had given me this second chance. Someone whose heart had stopped so mine could continue. Dr. Matthews entered the room not long after, his eyes tired but full of warmth. "You did great, Claire," he said, pulling up a chair beside my bed. "The transplant went as smoothly as we could have hoped." I nodded, still processing everything. "Thank you," I whispered. He gave a small smile, the kind that held more weight than words. "Rest now," he said softly. "Your body's been through a lot, but you've got a strong heart now, Claire. A new beginning." I closed my eyes, letting his words sink in. A new beginning. The first thing I noticed when I woke was the silence. Not the absence of sound, but the absence of the frantic, uneven thumping of my heart that had haunted me for so long. Instead, there was a steady, rhythmic beat beneath my ribs, strong, reliable, unfamiliar. I blinked my eyes open, the soft light of the recovery room filtering in, and it took me a moment to remember where I was. The heart transplant. I had made it. My chest felt tight, a dull ache stretching across the center of my body, but it was nothing compared to the exhaustion that had plagued me before. I felt different, lighter somehow, as if I was no longer dragging myself through each moment, waiting for my body to fail. I let out a breath I hadn't realized I was holding, relief washing over me in waves. The door creaked open, and a nurse stepped in quietly, smiling when she saw I was awake. "Good morning, Claire," she said softly, her voice soothing. "How are you feeling?" I tried to speak, but my throat was dry and scratchy. I swallowed hard before managing a raspy, "Okay, I think." She approached the bed and offered me a cup of water with a straw. "Small sips," she advised, her eyes watching me carefully. I took a few tentative sips, the cool water soothing my throat. How long has it been?" I asked, my voice still hoarse from the breathing tube that had been removed. "Just over a day," the nurse replied. "Your vitals have been stable, and the surgery went perfectly." I nodded, still trying to wrap my head around the fact that I was on the other side of the surgery. The ticking time bomb inside me had been replaced with something new, something alive. I could feel it now, a steady rhythm that wasn't mine but had become part of me. The nurse adjusted my IV, then gave me a kind smile. "Dr. Matthews will be in soon to check on you. In the meantime, just rest. You've been through a lot, but you're doing great." I closed my eyes, letting her words settle over me. For the first time in months, I felt a glimmer of hope that things might actually get better. Later, when Dr. Matthews entered the room, his usual calm demeanor seemed lighter, more relaxed. He pulled up a chair next to my bed and gave me a warm smile. "You're looking much better, Claire," he said, glancing over at the monitors before meeting my eyes. "How's the heart?" I asked, my voice still weak but filled with cautious hope. He nodded, his expression serious but reassuring. "It's doing very well. Your body is responding as we'd hoped, and the new heart is strong. You'll need to take it easy for a while, but the worst is behind you." I let out a breath I didn't realize I'd been holding. "I can't believe it," I whispered. "It feels so different." Dr. Matthews chuckled softly. "That's normal. It's not your old heart after all, but you'll get used to it. In time, it'll feel like it's always been a part of you." I looked down at my chest, feeling the subtle thump beneath my ribs, a beat that wasn't mine but had become mine all the same. "Thank you," I said, my voice barely more than a whisper. He smiled again, this time with a touch of humility. "It's what we do. But the real fight is ahead. Take care of that heart, Claire. It's a gift, and you've been given a second chance." As he left the room, I lay back against the pillows, letting the weight of everything settle in. I had been given a second chance. Someone's heart now beat within me, keeping me alive. And for the first time in months, I felt truly alive. The sterile silence of the hospital at night was broken only by the soft hum of distant machinery and the occasional murmur of voices. Exhaustion had long settled into my bones, but sleep eluded me. I wandered the dimly lit corridors, seeking some semblance of peace in the quiet solitude. As I turned a corner, I saw Dr. Matthews sitting alone by a large window. The city lights below sparkled like a constellation, but his eyes, fixed on the distant horizon, were clouded with unspoken sorrow. He sat in a chair, head bowed, the weight of the night pressing down on him. His usually steady hands trembled slightly as he clutched a cup of cold coffee. The scene was so strikingly different from the confident, determined figure I'd come to know in the operating room. I approached cautiously, the gentle click of my footsteps a quiet intrusion into his solitude. "Dr. Matthews," I said softly, my voice barely above a whisper. "Is everything all right?" He looked up, and the raw pain in his eyes made my heart ache. The light from the window cast a fragile glow over his face, highlighting the tears that traced paths down his cheeks. "Claire," he said, his voice choked with emotion. "We lost a little girl today. Emily. She was only 6. The words hung heavy in the air, and a deep, wrenching sadness settled over me. I could see the profound grief etched into every line of his face, each tear a testament to the life he had fought so hard to save. The loss was palpable, a gaping wound that neither of us could ignore. "I'm so sorry," I said, my own voice trembling as I reached out to him. "I know you did everything you could." Dr. Matthews took a shuddering breath, his shoulders sagging under the weight of his sorrow. It's hard, knowing that we could save you, but not her. I can't stop thinking about her family, about the emptiness they must feel." I sat down beside him, my heart aching for the little girl I had never met but whose story had touched me deeply. "We both know how fragile life is," I said softly, "and how precious every moment is. Your compassion and your efforts mean so much." He nodded, his eyes still glistening with tears. "It's just, when you see so much pain, it can be overwhelming. It makes you question everything." I reached out, placing a comforting hand on his arm. "You've saved so many lives, Dr. Matthews, and you've brought hope to those who needed it most. Even in the face of such heartbreaking losses, your strength and dedication shine through." He looked at me, and for a moment, his eyes were filled with a deep, heartfelt gratitude. "Thank you, Claire, for understanding, for being here." After me, he operated on a little girl who was in a car accident. The doctor spent about 9 hours in the operating room, but she still didn't survive. He cried against my shoulder for a long time. A doctor who saves lives kills himself if he could not save someone. There are a lot more scars on his heart than on mine, than on the heart of any of us. We sat together in the quiet, united by our shared grief and the weight of our respective battles. The city lights outside twinkled softly, as if in sympathy with our sorrow. In that moment, I felt an unspoken connection, a bond forged through our mutual understanding of loss and hope.